Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So in PIC18F45k80 microcontroller, the configuration bits are much different than what we have seen in the video for the XC8 compiler for PIC18F4580 microcontroller. So they are different in the 4580 and the 45k80 microcontroller. So here we find the oscillator configuration is already selected as the internal oscillator. The default selection for the oscillator in the configuration is the internal oscillator, which is already selected here, and the watchdog timer, which is enabled. The master clear we said is also enabled. So here we do not change the configuration, we keep them as it is, and the reason is for the oscillator it is already internal oscillator, and for the MCLR. So since we are connecting a pull-up resistor to the MCLR pin in our schematic and also on the breadboard, so we do not have to disable the MCLR for this microcontroller, and we will not be using the RE3 pin as an input pin or an output pin. So we will simply connect a pull-up resistor here always. If you want to find more details regarding the configuration bits of PIC microcontroller, you can find this in the data sheet in section 28 under the special features of the CPU. You can find section 28.1. This is all related to the configuration bits, and if you scroll down, you will find these are the configuration registers for this microcontroller, PIC18F45k80 microcontroller. So you have these many registers, and we will take a look at the oscillator selection. So oscillator selection is here in config 1H, and the MCLR selection, which is here in config 3H. So if you scroll down, you will find these are the default values here. So in config 1H, you find the oscillator selection bits, they are all 1000. So 1000, this is the default configuration, which is internal oscillator. So we don't make any change here, we keep it as it is. And the next bit here, the PLL bit is 0. That means oscillator is used directly, it is not multiplied by 4, it is used directly. So whatever internal oscillator frequency we have, we get the same frequency as the oscillator without any multiplication. And if we scroll down, you will find, okay, the watchdog timer bits are here. So you have 1 1 1 1 1, so all these are ones, so this is a reserved selection. And the last bit is 1, the last two bits, they are 1 1. That means it is enabled, in the hardware, so we don't have to worry about this, just leave it as it is default. And the MCLR is here, so this is also 1, the default is 1. That means once again it is enabled. So if this bit is enabled, that means RE3 input pin is disabled, so we will not be using RE3 pin as we have connected a pull-up resistor here. We will not be using it. So when you write your program, you don't have to generate the source code for the configuration bits, because we are using the default values, we are not making any change, so we don't have to generate the source code here, and just keep your program as it is with only the source file, and if you have the header files, you can use them here, and we don't have to add a separate config file here for this microcontroller for the time being, unless you make any changes. So if you are making any changes, for example, if in your design, if you want to connect an external oscillator or a high speed oscillator or anything like that, of course you'll have to make a change here. Okay, once again, since it is configured as the internal oscillator and the oscillator frequency, here if we go back to the oscillator control register, you will find, so this is the oscillator control register, and you can find here the default value for this microcontroller, PIC18F45k80 microcontroller. This is 0110, which is 6, and this is the default value, which is 8 megahertz. Okay, so if we change it to 7, that becomes 16 megahertz. If we change it to 5, it becomes 4 megahertz. So this is the default value of the internal oscillator, 6 and 0, so 0x60. This is the default value here. Okay, so this is the slight change that we have for the configuration bits of PIC18F45k80 microcontroller. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.